Well, hello there. Let's talk about something a bit spooky, shall we? But not in a scary movie kind of way, more like a curious head-scratching, what's that all about kind of way. We're talking about dying. It's a big word, and sometimes it feels like a big dark room nobody wants to peek into. But here's a secret. Everyone thinks about it. From the smallest kid wondering where a pet goldfish went to the oldest scientist pondering the universe. It's one of life's biggest mysteries, a giant question mark hanging over all of us. And that's okay. It's natural to be curious about the things we don't fully understand, especially something as universal as this. Death is a part of life. Think about it like the seasons. Spring comes, then summer, then autumn, and finally winter. Each season is different, and each one is important. Flowers bloom, and then they fade. Animals are born, they live their lives, and then their time comes to an end. It sounds a bit sad, maybe, but it's also how the world works. It's a cycle, and just like we can appreciate the beauty of a fading sunset, we can also approach the topic of death with a sense of wonder and a desire to learn. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, even if it feels that way sometimes. This isn't going to be a scary chat, promise. We're just going to explore what different people think happens. Like detectives, we'll look at clues from science, stories from ancient cultures, and ideas from wise folks who have spent a lot of time pondering this very topic. There isn't one single answer that everyone agrees on, and that's part of what makes it so interesting. It's like a giant puzzle, and everyone has a different piece they think fits. We'll look at some of those pieces together in a calm and curious way, without any pressure to believe one thing over another. So, take a deep breath. Let's put on our explorer hats and venture into this fascinating territory. We'll talk about what happens to our amazing bodies, what different religions and cultures believe, and what science can tell us and what it can't yet. The goal here isn't to find the answer because maybe there isn't just one. The goal is to learn, to think, and maybe even to feel a little more comfortable with one of life's most natural and most mysterious events. Ready? Let's begin our journey into the unknown, with open minds and a spirit of gentle inquiry. Let's start with the body. Our bodies are amazing machines, aren't they? They run, jump, think, feel, and heal. But like all machines, they can't run forever. When someone dies, it means their body has stopped working. The heart, which is like the body's powerful pump, stops beating. This means it stops sending blood, full of oxygen and nutrients, to all the other parts of the body, like the brain, the lungs, and the muscles. It's a bit like a factory where the main power supply gets switched off. The brain is a super important control center. It's what lets us think, dream, remember, and feel. When the heart stops and blood flow to the brain ceases, the brain also stops working after a very short time. This is a crucial part of what doctors look for to confirm that someone has died. They check for breathing, a heartbeat, and signs that the brain is no longer active. It's a very quiet process usually. The body becomes still. It's not like in the movies with dramatic gasps, usually. It's more like drifting off into a very, very deep sleep from which you don't wake up. After the body stops working, it starts to change. This is perfectly natural. It begins to cool down because it's no longer generating its own heat. Over time, other changes happen too, as the body slowly breaks down and returns to nature. This might sound a little yucky, but it's actually a very important part of the cycle of life. The elements that made up the body eventually go back into the earth and can help new things grow, like plants and trees. It's nature's way of recycling, ensuring nothing truly goes to waste. Think of it as the body giving back to the planet. So, in simple terms, death is when the physical body ceases its functions. The heart stops, breathing ends, and the brain becomes inactive. These are the biological facts that doctors and scientists observe. It's a natural end to the physical journey of life. But this is just the story of the body. Many people believe that there's more to us than just our physical form. And that's where things get even more interesting, leading us to explore what might happen to our consciousness, our spirit, or our soul. The physical ending is clear, but the next chapter is a big open question. For thousands of years, people all over the world have turned to their religions and faiths to understand what might happen after we die. Many religions offer comforting ideas about a life after this one. A common belief is the idea of heaven. Christians, for example, often believe that good people or those who have faith go to a wonderful place called heaven after they die. Heaven is usually described as a place of peace, joy, and eternal happiness, where they might be reunited with loved ones who have passed away before them and live in the presence of God. It's a place with no sadness, no pain, and no suffering. Similarly, Islam teaches about Jannah, which means garden and is often translated as paradise. Muslims believe that after death, there will be a day of judgment, and those who have lived good lives according to Islamic teachings will enter Jannah. This paradise is described in the Quran as a beautiful place with rivers of milk and honey, lush gardens, and eternal bliss. It's a reward for a life lived in obedience to God, a place of ultimate peace and fulfillment. The descriptions are vivid and aim to give hope and comfort to believers facing the end of their earthly lives. Judaism also has concepts of an afterlife, though they are often less detailed or central than in some other faiths. Some Jewish traditions speak of Olam Haba, the world to come, which can refer to a spiritual realm or a perfected world in the Messianic age. The focus is often more on living a good life in the here and now, but the belief in some form of continued existence or soul survival is present. Different Jewish thinkers have had various interpretations over the centuries, showing a range of thought on what exactly this afterlife entails. Many indigenous cultures around the world also have strong beliefs about an afterlife. For instance, some Native American traditions speak of a happy hunting ground or a spirit world where the spirits of the deceased go. These places are often seen as a continuation of life, but in a different, often more perfect form. Ancestors are revered and are believed to watch over the living from this spirit world. These beliefs are deeply connected to nature and the idea that life, death, and the spirit world are all interconnected in a sacred way. These faiths provide a framework of meaning and hope. Beyond the idea of a one-time journey to an afterlife like heaven or paradise, another very common belief around the world is reincarnation. This is the idea that after we die, our soul, or some essential part of us, is born again into a new body. This new body could be another human, or in some traditions, it could even be an animal or another form of life. It's like our spirit gets a new vehicle to experience life in. This isn't just a one-time thing. The cycle of death and rebirth can happen many, many times. It's a continuous journey of the soul. Hinduism is one of the major religions where reincarnation, known as samsara, is a central belief. Hindus believe that the soul, or Atman, is eternal and goes through many lifetimes. The kind of life you are reborn into depends on your karma, the sum of your actions in your previous life. If you lived a good life and did good deeds, you might be reborn into a better situation. If you lived a life full of negative actions, you might face a more difficult rebirth. The ultimate goal in Hinduism is to escape this cycle of samsara and achieve moksha, which is liberation and union with the divine. Buddhism also teaches about reincarnation, though with some different nuances. Buddhists believe in a cycle of rebirth driven by karma, desire, and ignorance. However, a key difference is the concept of anatta or no self. This means that there isn't a permanent, unchanging soul that transmigrates from one life to the next in the same way as in Hinduism. Instead, it's more like a flame passing from one candle to another, a continuity of consciousness and karmic energy, but not a fixed self. The goal for Buddhists is to achieve nirvana, which is the end of suffering and the cycle of rebirth. This idea of being reborn isn't limited to Eastern religions. Some ancient Greek philosophers like Plato also talked about the soul being immortal and going through various incarnations. Even today, some people in Western cultures find the idea of reincarnation appealing. It can offer a sense of continuity, a feeling that life doesn't just end abruptly, and that we might have many chances to learn and grow. The thought that we might meet an old soul in a new form, or that our own journey continues beyond this single existence, is a powerful one for many. It provides a different kind of hope and understanding of our place in the universe. Now let's switch gears and see what science has to say. Scientists like to study things they can observe, measure, and test. When it comes to what happens after death, that's a bit tricky for science, because after is a place science can't really go with its current tools. Science can tell us a lot about what happens to the body as it dies and after it has died, as we discussed with the physical changes. Doctors can pinpoint the moment biological life ceases. They can study the cells, the organs, and the chemistry involved in the process of dying and decomposition. From a purely biological and neurological perspective, most scientists would say that consciousness, our awareness, thoughts, feelings, and memories, is a product of the brain. When the brain stops functioning due to lack of oxygen and blood flow at death, then consciousness as we know it ceases to exist. It's kind of like a computer. When you turn off the power, the software stops running. There's no scientific evidence in the way scientists usually define evidence, repeatable, testable experiments, to support the idea that consciousness continues in some form after the brain has permanently stopped. However, that doesn't mean science has closed the book entirely. There are areas of research that touch on these big questions, even if indirectly. For example, some scientists study near-death experiences, which we'll talk more about soon. They try to understand what's happening in the brain during these events. Others explore the nature of consciousness itself. What is it? How does it arise from the physical brain? These are some of the biggest unanswered questions in neuroscience and philosophy of mind. The more we learn about the brain, the more complex these questions seem to become. So while mainstream science generally concludes that personal consciousness ends with brain death, it's also important to remember that science is always evolving. What we don't know today, we might discover tomorrow. Science is a process of inquiry, not a fixed set of answers. It provides a powerful way of understanding the physical world, but it also acknowledges its limits when it comes to questions that might lie beyond the physical realm or current methods of investigation. For now, science focuses on the observable, and the after remains largely outside that scope, a mystery from its perspective. Have you ever heard stories about people who were very, very close to death? Maybe their heart stopped, but then they were brought back to life by doctors. These are often called near-death experiences, or NDEs for short. People who have had NDEs sometimes report some truly amazing and puzzling things. It's like they got a tiny peek behind the curtain of what might happen when we die, and then they came back to tell the tale. These stories are found all over the world, across different cultures and belief systems, which makes them even more intriguing. Common themes in NDEs include seeing a bright light, often described as warm and loving. Some people report traveling through a tunnel towards this light. Many describe a feeling of incredible peace and being free from pain. Others say they had an out-of-body experience, where they felt like their consciousness, their self, floated out of their physical body. They might even see their own body and the doctors working on them from a viewpoint above. These accounts are often very vivid and feel intensely real to the person experiencing them. Another common element is meeting beings of light, or deceased relatives and friends who seem happy and welcoming. Some people report a life review, where they see moments from their life flash before their eyes, not in a frightening way, but more like a learning experience. Not all NDEs are positive. A small number of people report distressing or frightening experiences, though these are less common. What's fascinating is that these experiences often profoundly change the person. They might become less afraid of death, more spiritual, or more focused on love and kindness in their lives. Scientists and doctors have different ideas about what causes NDEs. Some suggest they could be hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, or the effects of medication, or unusual brain activity during a crisis. For example, the brain might release certain chemicals when it's under extreme stress that could create these vivid sensations. Others wonder if these experiences hint at something more. Perhaps consciousness can exist, even briefly, independently of full brain function. There's no single scientific explanation that everyone agrees on, so NDEs remain a fascinating puzzle, a blend of personal experience and scientific inquiry. Ghosts and energy. Beyond the body, and even beyond near-death experiences, there's another whole realm of belief about what might happen. The idea that some part of us, a spirit or an energy, might stick around in this world after we die. This is where stories of ghosts and hauntings come from. Many cultures have tales of spirits of the dead who, for various reasons, haven't moved on to an afterlife. Maybe they have unfinished business, or a strong emotional tie to a place or person. These stories have been told for centuries, captivating and sometimes spooking us. Belief in ghosts is very common. People report seeing apparitions, hearing unexplained noises, or feeling a sudden cold spot or a sense of presence when no one is there. Sometimes these experiences are comforting, like feeling a loved one is still nearby. Other times, they can be unsettling. Paranormal investigators try to find evidence of ghosts using cameras, audio recorders, and other equipment, hoping to capture something that science can't easily explain. While mainstream science is generally skeptical, these personal experiences are very real to the people who have them. Another idea, related but a bit different, is that our energy continues in some form. Some people, drawing from physics, talk about the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. They wonder if our life energy, our consciousness, or our soul spark also transforms into something else after we die. perhaps becoming part of the universe's vast energy field. This is more of a philosophical or spiritual idea than a scientifically proven one, but it offers a sense of connection to something larger than ourselves. These beliefs about spirits and lingering energies tap into a deep human desire for continuity and connection. The thought that our loved ones might still be with us in some way, or that our own essence won't simply vanish, can be very comforting. Whether these are actual disembodied spirits, echoes of past events, or simply the mind playing tricks, the experiences and the beliefs surrounding them are a significant part of how humans grapple with the mystery of death. They highlight our longing to understand if something of us persists beyond our physical existence in this world. Let's zoom out a bit and think about ourselves in the biggest picture imaginable. The universe. You, me, everyone and everything around us, we are all made of tiny particles called atoms. These atoms were not created when we were born. They have been around for an incredibly long time, billions of years in fact. They were forged in the hearts of ancient stars that exploded long, long ago, scattering these building blocks across the cosmos. So, in a very real scientific sense, we are made of stardust. How cool is that? When our bodies die and decompose, as we talked about earlier, these atoms don't just disappear. They are returned to the earth and the atmosphere. They become part of the soil, the water, the air. They might get taken up by plants, which are then eaten by animals, and so on. The atoms that once made up your body, or the body of a dinosaur, or a famous historical figure, are constantly being recycled. They become part of new life, new things. So, while our individual consciousness as we know it might end, the physical stuff we are made of continues its journey through the universe. This idea can be very comforting for some people. It means that even after we're gone, we remain a part of the ongoing story of the universe. We are not separate from nature. We are deeply, fundamentally connected to it. The famous scientist Carl Sagan often spoke about this, saying, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." Thinking about this cosmic connection can make death feel less like an ending and more like a transformation, a return to the source from which all things came. It's a scientific perspective that also has a kind of poetic or spiritual feel to it. So, while we might ponder what happens to our mind or our soul, we can be certain that our physical components have an ongoing adventure. Our atoms will go on to be parts of mountains, oceans, trees, and maybe even future stars or other living beings. This doesn't answer the personal question of what will I experience, but it does offer a sense of belonging to something vast, ancient, and continuous. It's a reminder that life and death are part of a grand cosmic dance of matter and energy, a cycle that has been going on for eons and will continue long after we are gone. So, what really happens when you die? As we've seen, there are so many different ideas, from religious beliefs about heavenly realms or rebirth, to scientific explanations about the body and brain, to personal stories of near-death experiences and the sense that we are made of stardust. The truth is, no one living knows for absolutely certain what happens after our last breath. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the mystery itself is an important part of being human, prompting us to think, to question, and to seek meaning in our lives. One thing we do know for sure is how people live on in the memories of others. When someone we love dies, they don't just vanish from our lives completely. We remember their laugh, their stories, the things they taught us, and the way they made us feel. These memories keep them alive in our hearts and minds. The love we shared with them continues, and the impact they had on the world, big or small, ripples outward. In this way, everyone achieves a kind of immortality through the connections they make and the legacy they leave behind. It's natural to feel a mix of emotions when thinking about death: sadness, curiosity, perhaps a little fear, but also hope and wonder. There's no right or wrong way to feel. Exploring these different beliefs and ideas can help us understand our own feelings better and appreciate the many ways humans have tried to make sense of this big question. It can also help us to be more understanding and respectful of what others believe, even if it's different from our own views. This shared human experience of facing mortality can actually bring us closer together. Ultimately, perhaps the best approach is to live our current lives as fully and kindly as we can, to cherish the people around us, to learn, to explore, and to make a positive difference in the world, however small. Whether there's a grand adventure waiting for us after this life, or simply a return to the universe's gentle embrace, focusing on making this life meaningful is always a good idea. Keep asking questions, keep being curious, and find comfort in the knowledge that you are part of a vast, mysterious, and wonderful existence. The journey of life is precious, and so is the enduring power of love and memory.